And I also took the liberty of trying to establish a correlation between the companies and the formats which were kind of coming up during those phases, and the kind of movies which were kind of being produced in India and outside of India, because cinema reflects the changes in our society. So we'll start with level one. So level one, it's you can see top left hand quadrant. It's a linear chart, one axis kind of moving upwards. India, fresh out of independence, was kind of trying to ensure food security. Everything was centralized. There was no incentive for innovation. And the backdrop was that in 1943, we had famine in Bengal, and which resulted into the deaths of 2.3 million people. So naturally, we were very scared of famines. We were very scared of wars. We were very scared of conquests. And that's how, the psyche got built. We had to create food security for ourselves. So there was just focus on scale, stick to basics, no incentive for innovation. So if you look at the pictures down below, public distribution system was introduced actually in India in 1947, June of 1947. You had cooperatives which started coming up, mainly to boost the agri production. And then you had Milk Cooperative, which is today the largest food company in India. That's Amul. So let's look at the kind of movies which were coming up during that phase. So you obviously, we were a country looking for basic security. So right from Mother India to Roti Kapda Aur Makan, then there was this movie by Satyajit Ray, Ashini Sanket, which had the backdrop of Bengal famine in this movie. So there was no celebration of food. Bawarchi was a little bit of exception, because food in India at that time was being celebrated in the rich households. So that's the part Rajesh Khanna plays in that movie. But if you look at the movies being played rest of the world, people had started celebrating food. And mind you, world was also coming out of the World War II after evac. So whereas India was security, right, taking care of basic necessities, the rest of the world was celebrating kind of food. Let's look at the kind of formats which came up, right, during that period. So you had Kareem's, you have Chafekar, you had Kesar Da Taba in Amritsar, you had Indian Coffee House. So these were actually set up before independence. But this was the golden opportunity for these formats to kind of look at New India, expand to the extent they could, and became sort of nodal places in wherever these places, these outlets were located. On the processed food side, you see sudden emergence. We spoke about Amul, but there was sudden emergence of players like Dabur, ITC. So they had potent market, right? After post-independence India, Kohinoor rice, quality walls. The one I like is, Maggi, Cremica, which later on became a huge brand today. Cremica has been, I think, the umbrella sponsor of various franchise India conventions in the recent years. So look at expansion stage, which is 1991 onwards. So if you look at the top left quadrant, so we had suddenly optionalities as to what you can achieve with independent India, and liberalization was something that was being rolled out, and it gave rise to sudden emergence of white-collar jobs. If you look at the chart down below, this is the time when services and manufacturing kind of started showing growth. We were primarily an agri-based economy, huge dependence, compared to the first phase. This was the phase when there was focus on manufacturing, there was focus on services, hotels started coming up, right? IT is something that took its roots during this phase. Look at the way the movie scenario changed, between 1991 to 2010. You suddenly had Chini come and whole lot of, English movies. So interestingly, this was the time when cable had already been rolled out, and India was not only celebrating food, but India was also watching the movies being made in the Western sort of continents. And this was the time when Indian food also became subject of Hollywood, right? So Indian food was kind of getting noticed. Let's look at what was happening on the industry side. Sorry, yeah. So liberalization brought in a lot of multinational companies from Coke, Pepsi. First outlet of McDonald's came up in 1996. Coke entered India in 94. 95 is when they kind of took over Parle beverages, Thumbs Up, Limca, Gold Spot, etc. And whole lot of other companies followed. And that was the time when young entrepreneurs outside of the established business houses also started setting up their businesses. So notable to mention, certain brands are like Cafe Coffee Day, which is today the largest, after Domino's, they are one of the largest F&B players in the country. You have Dawat Rice, you have Domino's, of course, which is the largest and listed company in this space. But on the discerning side, you suddenly saw the emergence of players like Mainland China, Pind Baluchi, Smokehouse Grill, Olive. India was changing. So, coming to the last part, as far as the evolution of food in India is concerned. So today, we are kind of in this phase. So this phase actually has two parts, 2011 to 2015, and then things have been very, very different post 2015. So suddenly, you have multiple options, right? You can pretty much do anything you like. There has been explosion of data, accessibility is almost like a human right. And all this has impacted the industry in a manner it functions, and in a manner it impacts the consumption. So with it, because of a sudden explosion of knowledge, you also have a lot of, views coming and counter views coming. So industry is at that cusp wherein, sometimes people say fats are good, sometimes people say, carbohydrates are better than, fats are better than carbohydrates. So, knowledge also has its perils, and that's something industry is kind of jostling with. Look at the movies. So suddenly the scene is very vibrant. So we have chefs who are like at the center stage of most of the movies that are being made in India and also outside of India. So this era shows exploration of food across the world. So people are trying out new things, making interesting movies around food. So look at the way, interestingly, India has changed from a stage wherein food security was our primary priority to a stage where we are celebrating food in a very, very open and nice manner. We do have issues, like there is hunger in the country, poverty, but that's also kind of, getting sorted out. When you have a country of 1 billion with 34-35% people below the poverty line, when you got, all of us got independence, it's not an easy task to erase all that out in a matter of 30, 40 years. Yeah, there are a lot of things we could have done better, but to be fair to our forefathers and ancestors, a lot has been achieved as far as the elimination of hunger is concerned. Look at, this chart is actually of very much interest to me. Look at, scenario in 60s when we were basic necessity. Look at the first row. So you have Chai Point, you have Chayos, you have Chai Thela. You also have Chai Gali. I didn't know Chai Gali. I didn't know much about Chai Gali until today when I read that they are one of the co-sponsors. So that's India, right? So nothing, then Cafe Coffee Day. And in tea alone, you have vibrant formats coming up. Look at the innovation around social, which celebrates demography. Look at Papaya, which is celebrating the real Asian food. So we are beyond that stage of chicken chow mein and van-based Chinese food that we all grew up on. Curry Singh, huge focus on one outlet, but huge focus on vegetarian, right? And then there were global players who were kind of waiting for India to open up fully to get convinced that this is the right time for us to enter India. So the fund I represent, Everstone Capital. So Burger King is someone we contacted in 2006, and I personally did. They said, we aren't ready. 2009, not ready. 2011, not ready. I think persistence paid. We always knew that this brand would pose a good challenge to McDonald's and KFC. Finally, in 2013, Burger King decided to enter India. So they were late entrants. So there are both pluses and minuses to late entry in a country like India, and we shall discuss that in our subsequent slides. Look at the new wave of movies, highly specialized, right? I talked about data, I talked about explosion of knowledge, but look at the stuff that's happening not only on the movies front, but also TV shows that you have, whether it's Netflix or cookery or MasterChef shows. So it's food all around, right? And someone actually created a company after reading a book that was written in 1966. So this company, based on this guy who wrote this book in 66, he had a futuristic approach, and he projected in that book, in 1999, there will be something which would kind of satiate not only your hunger, but all your nutritional sort of needs. So there is a company in California which is kind of trying out this thing. They have initial struggle, but they are very confident of getting somewhere closer to what this book projected. This is called Make Room, Make Room. There's a movie also now, a documentary kind of movie made on the basis of this book. But that's how the food has evolved worldwide. So to sum up our first session, this chart shows how India's GDP from 1960 has grown to 7.5%, 8% kind of levels. There's a rule of 72 in economics. So what they say is your growth rate, let's say our growth rate is 7.2%. So when you divide this number into 72, that's the number of years you take to double your GDP. So right, so in a country like India, so if you grow at 7.2% year on year, right, in 10 years you double your GDP. So that's the very basic thumb rule. So if your growth rate is 6%, so you take 12 years, right? So every year matters in India. So sometimes, when you ask people, what's the degree of urbanization in India, people say 30, 35%. What they don't realize is that in that 30 to 35% description of urbanization, you are compromising 4 to 5 crore people. So it's very hard to move 1 crore people to gain that 1 percentage point uptick in urbanization. When you move 1 crore people out of India's rural and semi-urban areas into urban clusters, they add to the consumption, and we all benefit from it. So this is the beauty of numbers. So to spend few seconds on this chart, so the industry that started with Haldiram, Qualities, Bikanerwala, Kesi Das, this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are many, many other names which I might have missed out on. But this is just to give you a flavor of how India's food industry has evolved over the past 40, 50 years. In the middle, we suddenly had a lot of innovative, specialized formats coming up. Right? Today, mainland China is gone. Papaya is in. Kailin is in. Every region of our country has a sort of better version. And it's not like mainland China is gone and the entrepreneur is also gone. Anjan Chatterjee, who's like one of the very, very well-respected entrepreneurs in the food segment in our country, has also evolved. He's done so many other better new things in line with the changing times. But this 2010 and afterwards is a very interesting period, and that's what in our second part we will try to figure out as to what's the new food manifesto, right? So you certainly have emergence of companies like Curry Singh, Burma. So I have not kind of included the obvious. I have included, examples of entrepreneurship. Size doesn't matter, right? So what was very, very small 50 years ago, who could have thought that Haldiram, founded in like 30s, today is India's most valuable company should they ever decide to go public, right? So it always starts with an idea, an honest intent, and brutal execution on the ground. So when I look at formats like Burma, when I look at formats like Curry Singh, you see a change that's kind of taking place in our society. So, what happens is when people are successful, competition follows. It's a very simple rule of nature. Wherever there is money, there is competition. So what this third phase has done is that success has become very, very difficult to achieve, right? Not to discourage anyone out here, if you kind of looked at the previous charts, it took a long time for Haldiram to become what they are today. So I think in the mid-90s to early 2000, people became a little impatient. And part of that happened because of easy access to money. Valuations became more important than execution. And part of what I did in my previous avatar and a little bit of that, what I still do, we are also kind of responsible for that. But there are lessons to be learned. So if you look at this chart, so this is basically teeth is very important function of our body. You are biting, right? You are being aggressive. You are doing something meaningful with your teeth. Torso is also important. It's kind of digesting food or doing something nice. Tail is something which our bodies usually don't need. Unfortunately, if you look at, every industry has a natural tail. So you won't find an industry without a tail. But when you come across an industry where tail is not only becoming longer but fatter, so it starts acting like a drag. New entrepreneurs, they get discouraged. It becomes harder and harder to succeed in such kind of market places. So this is the scenario today. Almost like 75% of our outlets are either loss-making or not making enough money. 20% outlets are, I would say, on the sunny side, and this is not including five-star sort of formats. It doesn't include fine dining. It's mainly cafes, QSRs, and casual dining. Right? These are the numbers from the industry. So the ideal scenario for us, as I said, tail would always be there. Absence of tail means that there is no innovation. No one is kind of taking risks. But today we are confronted with this reality wherein the tail is becoming longer and heavier. So if you look at the three public companies, right? The reason I split 2010 afterwards into two parts is that things really started to change after 2015. So they are, for all practical purposes, there are three publicly listed companies where they share practically everything. Look at the growth, Domino's, Cafe Coffee Day, and McDonald's, one of their listed entities, which is called Westlife Development, were kind of doing in early 2010, 2011. Came 2014. We actually managed very well after the recession because real estate got rationalized. India was emerging, a lot of development on the mall fronts, very unique real estate was coming up. But towards the 13, 14 part, the industry dipped, right? So these are, some of the perils of growth. But this time is different, depending upon how we see it. You see it as a lesson, there's an opportunity. You see it, something which shall pass with the passage of time. You could be on the wrong side of destiny. So this chart explains how our formats usually get built in when we start such businesses. So you look at the amount of money an average entrepreneur spends on interiors, right? On architects, on other basic essentials. Look at the money we spend on intelligence, which is food, right? If you are to look at the cost structure of a laptop or any computer, right? Two things, the Intel processor and the operating system account for 52% of the total cost. The rest is your screen and RAM and keyboard and stuff like that. Look at our industry, 2 to 5%. We are so obsessed with creating a nice looking outlet, but often food is ignored. So there is no Intel inside. But does that mean that industry doesn't have any sort of knowledge? No, there's a lot of knowledge. Look at the knowledge that's sitting in this room. So let's look at what's causing this change. So one of the primary drivers of the change now is the rise of millennials and Generation Z. So millennials are people who were born, some people say 82, some people say 84. We rounded it up to 1980. There is no pure justification. Actually, anybody who turned 18 in 2000 is a millennial. And anybody who was born in 2000 or after 2000, they call it Generation Z. And this is not like just a slogan or a bumper sticker that we can ignore. This generation is actually very different because the way they have grown up, the access to knowledge, the digitization, right? And we'll look at some quick charts to explain what we are dealing with. So if you look at the demographic spread of India as it stands today, there are 466 million millennials, 46.6 crore millennials, and about 26 crores Generation Z, right? They behave very differently from their previous generations. So this chart, it's slightly blurred because of the large screen. So this chart captures things which were very complex in 60s, because we are comparing 60s and the current age, and things which were very simple in 60s. So, choosing who to date is easier today compared to choosing where to live, right? So you will have access to this presentation. I think in our families, we have millennials, we have Generation Z. I have a daughter who's millennial, so I sometimes really feel that there's a blackout. I thought she was different from previous generations, but when I read about Generation Z for zebra, I really feel that as a father I'm lucky, but as a marketer, as a business person, I don't know. what is in store for me. So, you know, this chart got released last week. I don't have any objective substantiation. This is not from India. This is something that is coming from the US. The industries which millennials are killing, right, from napkins to casual dining chains to bars of soap to diamonds to designer bags. There is no sense of ownership of houses. They want to travel. They want to see the new world. They want to go to African safari. They want to go to Dharamshala whenever there is a big weekend, right? They want to cook. So food is getting celebrated in every house, every corner of this country. These are the things we should be mindful of. The other big factor is legacies are coming under pressure. So I've shown you the chart, Intel inside and Intel outside. Look at the way fast food industry has in the past innovated. You know, top left quadrant, Coca-Cola was invented in 1894. Whopper, which is Burger King's signature product, 1957. KFC's, chicken on bone, 1957. French fries, 1960s. Big Mac, 1968. What happened after that? So the reason QSR industry today is under pressure is they took this success for granted. Nothing in this world holds on for perpetuity, and this chart is an excellent example. So where is the knowledge sitting today? The knowledge is sitting with Kramica. Knowledge is sitting with OSI. Knowledge is sitting with people like McCain, right? Most QSRs in India, including our own Burger King, we don't even have a test kitchen. So where do we develop our new products? We go to OSI, we go to Wankies, we go to Chatta Food, and they prepare and sample the food, and we suggest minor tweaks, hoping that this new product would kind of do wonders for us. That's the scene. So there's a very potent question. What is more important today, brand, knowledge, or capital? I personally feel that this is the first time when knowledge is at a huge premium. That's why I like the first chart. 17-year-old boy, right, getting so much focus, premium attention because he's the change agent. And you know, companies like Coke who have very large balance sheet, and I quoted the example of Peet's Coffee, when you can't invent, you acquire. So these are some of the acquisitions that Coke has made in the recent years. Minute Maid was acquired in 1960s, but all other things were acquired in recent years. I'll skip this chart. So what happens is that when you don't innovate, your pricing comes under pressure. The best innovation the QSR industry in India has ever produced is the Aloo Tikki burger, right? And it has done wonders for McDonald's. That's their backbone. And one thing that I was always scared of when we were getting Burger King into India was how do you counter Aloo Tikki burger? But thing with innovation is that if you, I'll take 5 minutes. Thing with innovation is that if you don't continuously innovate, right, you lose the pricing edge. In our industry, those of you who are from F&B domain, 6 to 7% increase is pretty much a done thing, right? And if we were to apply 6% year-on-year increase to Aloo Tikki burger, which was introduced in 2004, the Aloo Tikki burger should have been selling at 49 rupees 50 paisa today. So they've just taken a price increase of 29 rupees. In airports, it's 30, 31 rupees because of captive opportunity. But in the open market, it's 29. So what happens to other players who don't even have, so this is not a chart to ridicule McDonald's. The others are worse off. They don't have Aloo Tikki burger. That's the dilemma, right? So legacy products for the first time are coming under pressure. Imagine if all of us were on Apple 1 or Apple 2. Apple is getting ready with their 8th version of iPhone. That's how the industry needs to move. The sad part is that knowledge is spread out, everything is there, but there is no access to that knowledge. That access needs to be streamlined, right? And because of lack of access, people and companies are doing random things. And changing markets. India is a country which tests your patience, right? Starbucks can very comfortably say that in China we will open, they say actually one outlet every day will open in the next year starting, right? Because they've done a lot of innovations. I think they are already 2,000 plus. Look at Starbucks here, not even 100. Look at Burger King, 3 years. We feel very good that we've done 100 outlets, but compared to the other parts of the world, this is nothing. Reason, the market takes time to expand in India, but when it does, it really does. So this is the scenario of 4 companies that I've handpicked, right? In terms of their dependence on 2 plus 6, 2 cities are Delhi, Bombay, major metros, and 6 like, Bangalore, Chennai, etc. So 79, we are younger, so 79% of Burger King is concentrated in these 8 cities. Barbecue Nation is a brighter example. They had a proposition, being a very young company, I think 1996 they started. They have almost 50-50 split, which is wonderful. And they are going IPO. Chances are they'll be the most valuable company in terms of ratios when they hit the IPO. And this chart says it all. Domino's over the past 22 years has been able to achieve a very good mix. So what next? And Delhi, when you look at real estate, 700, 800 rupees per square feet, no chance you can ever make money. Does that mean it's like end of the world? So look at this chart, right? So India, as I said, moves very slow. This is a chart from McKinsey, not my chart. Look at these cities, how they are growing in terms of potential. There got to be one tipping point when all these cities become very, very kind of meaningful from the expansion standpoint. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. Stay-at-home economy, the delivery part, is becoming very, very important. Back in the day, I was telling Ashish of Chili's that in 2014, when we were doing Burger King planning, I thought our delivery would be 3 to 4%. Burger to soggy ho jata hai, kaun deliver karega? It's fast food, so people will kind of carry and either be eating at the outlet or carry themselves and eat in their cars, etc. I was so wrong. I was not wrong by 1 or 2 percentage points. It's actually turning out to be 14, 15% in just 3 years. So that's stay-at-home economy for you. If you look at the new age players like Zomato, Swiggy, look at the number of orders they process, 70, 80,000 orders, and growing. Look at the chart, which is from April 16 to April 17. Sorry. Then there is broader question of the technology. It's coming in various shapes and forms, right? And risk and creativity, they have inverse as well as direct relationship. You take risks, as they say in Desi Hindi, high risk, high rewards. But this time it's a little different because innovation is sitting outside. So there is technology and there is technique. So look at, this is a very interesting chart. A chart devised by an illustrator. I'm almost done, thanks. Chart done by illustrators when Amazon bought out Whole Foods, right? So illustrator is showing that this is how Amazon is likely to deliver. No one knows what exactly is going to happen, but this is just the imagination of the illustrator who's created these 4 or 5 charts that Amazon is going to deliver food like that, and where the food is delivered, actually that's the backside of your refrigerator, and your trash is also kind of segregated, picked up, taken to a fill site, so no sweat, right? What happened today? So earlier in the day, there was this news report. So yesterday was the first day of Amazon, right, on the wheel of Whole Foods. They took a price reduction of 7 to 43%. Whole Foods, which is like very, very premium, in terms of its offering and the clients they service, 7 to 43% price reduction across categories, whether it's avocado or some, retort stuff or frozen stuff. What happened to the other retailers, right? Walmart slipped by 2%, Kroger's 8%, Costco 5% in just one day. So that's the threat, new things are posing to the businesses. This is a very interesting chart from MIT lab. So they say that the ingredients we have, which are already identified, currently we are eating about million sort of recipes here and there, right? Now the technology would allow you to uncover another like 10 to the power 15, 16 recipes. So we all know about food pairing, right? Somebody, in our ancestry cracked the code that aloo goes very good with gobi, but there is always a scientific, justification. They did it by hit and trial. But MIT technology today allows you to pair food which are like very dissimilar in nature, and that's called food bridging. This is something you will have at your fingertips very, very soon, right? So coming to the second last slide, there are things about, now this is where technology gets blurred. There are things like robotic cooking, right? So one of the things that robotic cooking delivers is efficiency, of course. Instead of 4 people, you have one robot who's kind of delivering, but also consistency. But there is a new school of thought because of Millennials and Generation Z. They don't want consistency. When you give them consistency, they doubt, where is the human element? They love to have some inconsistency because then it shows that human element is at play. Likewise, big data. It's good to dissect data, to infer meaning out of that data. But is it so simple that you can predict that I'm going to have my next cup of tea after I finish my session? I don't know the answers. The options are there, right? Technology is trying to address many things, but when it comes to food, human behavior could be very, very different. So this is something which we are trying to do in our new venture. So when we plot all the constituencies of food on a single platform, so what we are basically trying to do is that you don't need to have all the intel inside. If there is a platform which provides access, right, there is enough and more intel sitting outside which you can access to improve your productivity. I won't spend much time on that, but very happy to walk you through this model offline. It should be going live in another 2 to 3 weeks on the outer side, and we look forward to your feedback. So to wind up, as one of very good environment experts in the US, John Muir, said that everything in the world is connected. So don't look at the food today as disjointed pieces that I'll do organic without really understanding what the organic is. And someone, said it very, very well that, the whole ecosystem of food is hanging together like Olympic rings. They are distinct, but they are held together. That's where the caution needs to be exercised. So if you are getting into a new business, creating a technology platform, or buying out a company on the processed food side, you can't just go the linear way as we did in 1960s or 1980s when 1 or 2 options were there. Today there are multiple forces at play. The third thing is, the last point from my side, is that suddenly human creativity in food is at a premium, right? The way chefs, food experts, even farmers are being looked upon today is very different from the way this special class of people were treated in our first 40, 50 years, right? So this is the time when you will see a very good influence of chefs, farmers, other food experts on the productivity, on the, right from satiation to delight, you will see their impact. So the point is that everything is composite. Don't look at anything in a disjointed manner. So if you haven't spoken to a teenager in a long time, start doing so. It'll be fun, and there'll be a lot of lessons that sessions like this I don't think can even remotely address, because that's real. This is just extraction of what I learned from all of you and from the marketplace, and bring it back to you to learn more. So that's it from my side. I know I exceeded the time limit. Pleasure being with you. Happy to address anything offline or on email. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite Ms. Ritu Maurya to please come on the stage to also present a memento to our speaker, Mr. Jaspal Singh Sabharwal. Can we have a huge round of applause one more time to thank him? I'm going to request you to please connect with him offline as well in case of any further queries. Thank you once again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and with that, it's time for our next session, very aptly titled as the Chef Talk. We're talking also about focusing more perspectives, even about bringing global best practices to Indian food. In fact, this afternoon, we have the presence of one of the most celebrated chefs in India, who comes with over 15 years of experience in the food industry and over 10 years as executive and corporate chef across India as well as USA. He's a TV show host, he's also the judge and a food stylist. In fact, he's also been recipient of numerous awards, and we've all been fans of his TV shows, such as Health Be, Taste Be, or for that matter, The Great Indian Rasoi. And most importantly, I think many of us are big fans of his smile. I think that smile is very synonymous to the fact that food is true love. So please put your hands together to welcome on stage celebrity chef and restaurateur, Chef Ranveer Brar.